Guys, if you want to see some behind the scenes of how Applied Hearing Solutions runs as a clinic, you need to watch this video. Hey guys, welcome back to the Dr. Cliff Show. Today we are doing an interview with a very special guest. Her name is Sarah Cottingham from Incito Enterprises, and it's our consultant. So if you really want to know the ins and outs of why we do things the way that we do them in our clinic, then you really want to make sure that you do not miss this particular episode. So let me go ahead and introduce Sarah Cottingham. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. So also, of course, we're here with my wife, Ashley, who actually is probably the reason why you're sitting here. Now, we'll get into that part of the story here in a little bit, but kind of give us an understanding of how you actually got into consulting, because every consultant that I know has some kind of an interesting story that led them to this career path.
How much time do we have?
We have 6 hours.
Yeah, that could take us a little bit of time, but the short story would be that my family was actually in dentistry when I was very, very young. And when the age of 6, they moved to a really small town in Arizona and bought a resort and went into ownership of a business. And it was a family-run business for about 10 years. So from the time that I was really, really young, it was a family-run business and work really, really hard and do the right thing for the people, and people will come. And when they decided that they were going to try and retire, they moved to another small town in Arizona, and they got back into doing dentistry. So my mom went into dental assisting and office management, and my dad was doing just side jobs with dental offices. And so I kind of grew up in the dental practice, and I'd been hearing about it for years. And so from that, my parents had always instilled in me, you should go and you should be a dental hygienist. You should be a dental hygienist. And well, of course, I went to nursing school instead. And so that didn't last long when I decided that nursing just wasn't going to be my gig. And I went and started dental assisting in the practice that my mom was working in. And I went to work for a very forward-thinking dentist and hygienist that really altered the way that I saw what my future was going to look like. And I was like, I'm going to go to dental hygiene school. And so I did, because I thought that that's how it was supposed to be. So this particular office that I worked in, this gentleman was way before his time. Back in the late 80s, he was non-par with insurance, so he did not accept insurance. He was working for a very limited number of days a month, and he would then go and ski instruct during the winter in Telluride, and he would barefoot water ski, or he would go spend weeks on Lake Powell. And I was like, that's the life that I want, and I thought that that's how it was supposed to be, so I ended up doing dental hygiene. And when I got into the real world, it was not that way at all. And it was drill, fill, get patients in, what is their insurance going to cover? We have lots of holes and lots of opportunities to be putting people in the schedule. People weren't being served. And I really figured out that that wasn't what I signed on for. And I saw an opportunity in one of the practices that I was in that I could run it like the business that my parents ran. You do the right thing at the right time, and you serve the people, and they show up. And so I had approached the dentist and like, you know what, I think you should kind of just let me run it. And I started emulating some of the things that this other dentist, and his name was actually Dale Ring, I implemented some of those things in the practice and had a waiting line in that practice for dental hygiene. And it was 3 hygienists, and I was actually operating that as a business inside of the business. Well, when the dentist saw that I was able to do that, we actually shifted into, I then started managing his dental practice. And then he started buying distressed dental practices. We were putting in systems, coaching the people up, growing the people from inside, and then just growing practices. And then I found my way into owning my own business, and then I have consulted with all types of industries, because from dentistry, I was referred into other specialties like plastic surgery, chiropractic, pediatric, geriatric, Audiology, because it's all the same thing. It's just a different widget. It's do the right thing and grow the people, and then you can deliver your product. And so I've just found that that's really how it goes. You work on the people from the inside out, and the rest is easy.
Now, the story of how you actually got to work with us goes back a couple of years now. And Ashley, I think it'd be neat for you to kind of enlighten the audience about how we actually stumbled across Sarah.
Yeah. Well, I actually, it all started with an unfortunate experience that I had here in Phoenix that led me to my now dentist, who I have a lot of respect for.
And who is that dentist?
It's Dr. Todd May.
And he's in what, North Scottsdale? He's my dentist too, but I can't remember the name of the dental clinic. North Valley?
North Scottsdale Dental Studio.
North Scottsdale Dental Studio.
Yeah, I know the name. Fantastic dentist. I hope he will be my dentist forever. But anyhow, I had been going there for some treatments, and I just had noticed that my experience was like no other experience I have had at a dental office, and I just kind of started asking questions, really. And I can call him Todd, I've asked him. But so I was just chatting with Todd and about his staff and just the whole experience, and that's when he mentioned, well, we actually have a consultant, or we used a consultant in the past. And so I said, well, if you don't mind, I would like to have that consultant's name. So I got Sarah's information, and then I reached out to Sarah, and now here we are. Like, what, 2 years and some change?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because we had our initial phone call, and I think that we had decided at that point that we were growing enough because we were being inundated with new patients. It was too much for me to handle on my own, and we were growing, but we didn't really know how to grow well. And our whole thing was extremely high quality of care, excellent patient experience. And when you grow too fast, sometimes it's hard to actually maintain that high standard when it's not, me being the one seeing every single patient so I can uphold it that way, you interacting with every single person on the phone. Like, we actually needed more help on how to grow because I had never grown a substantially large practice before. Yeah. You had worked in, medical healthcare, but as an employee. Yeah. Maybe some level of leadership, but on a relatively small scale, like the staff was already built out. But it was like we realized that if we want to maintain the quality of care inside of our clinic as we grow, we just knew that we'd need a set of outside eyes and someone with expertise in helping teams grow and still provide a high level of care. And so when you happen to identify that Dr. Mabry's clinic was like, man, he has, I don't know how many staff members, more than what we have at the time, even 2 years ago. And the experience that you would have going in was an exceptional experience each and every time. It was quite clear that whatever he was doing was working or had worked at that point.
Yes.
And so I think it was, the way that a lot of relationships are built, which are you have an excellent experience, you ask them like, well, what did you do? Oh, well, I happen to know someone named Sarah Cottingham who might be able to work with you too. And so that really is what initiated the phone call. And then I just remember being on these initial phone calls being like, yeah, okay, we definitely need some help, based on the conversations that we were having. So we ended up having you come in and actually get a hearing test and kind of secret shop us. And I've talked about this on the Dr. Cliff vlog before, but tell us what your initial and here's the thing, don't hold any punches. Like, your perspective of coming in and where we were at, and I think everyone thinks of me being as like, oh, Cliff's clinic is like the top notch. Like, we were not always like excellent at what we did during these growing pains. So what was your experience coming in?
Well, I just want to hit the rewind button just a little bit. You'll find it interesting that people that are doing good go to get great. And so that's exactly how Dr. Mabry got to me as well. So I was referred to him by an oral surgeon, plastic surgeon, an oral surgeon MD, that I was working with that was part of his referral base. And he's like, hey, things look like something's going different when he was having a lunch with them. Like, you look a little less stressed out. Like, what's going on with you over there? And he was like, oh, well, I hired a consultant and, you might want to meet with her. And so he calls me one morning, bright and early, like early. And I think it was even a Saturday.
Well, that's Todd.
Yeah. And he was like, hey, things are going good. He was like, but I know they could be better. And he grew his practice from that, and he was doing really well. And now we call that, that's exceptionally well. So you were in the same spot, you were doing really, really well. But if you apply a spray and pray approach, and then you want to transfer that to other associates and have the level of quality stay the same and have raving fans with every provider and every interaction that they have, you have to train on that. You can't expect to get that kind of quality out of, we're just going to spray and pray across the board. So I had suggested, like, well, let me come in and secret shop. And you're like, secret shop? And I'm like, yeah, why not? I need a hearing exam. I did not think that I had a hearing issue. It was kind of like, yeah, I probably need to do that being a dental professional, having been in the industry for so long. And I found that the office was operating well. And I was greeted very pleasantly, very abruptly. And I was met with a checklist. And it was all high quality information and requests, but it was very structured and it was fast. And I saw your associate and he did a really great job with me. I was ready to purchase very quickly. He almost talked me out of it. It was, there were a lot of things in there that, because I was such a fast purchaser, because my profile is, hey, you got me, let's go, let's do it today. And it was like, there was a bit of I don't know what to do with that, because that doesn't follow the protocol. It doesn't follow the natural buying trends. And it was almost like and when I came back for the second appointment was the interesting time when I revealed to your associate that, so now I'll tell you who I really am. Right. And he was like, uh-oh, how'd I do? And I got fit with devices. I'm actually a hearing aid wearer and believe in what you do and how you do it. And I think that it's a huge underserved area of the community for sure.
Absolutely. So you see where we're at now versus where we were, and I want to say it's almost exactly 2 years ago when we started with this.
Been 2 years in June.
Yeah, 2 years. Oh, it was 2 years in June, this past June. Okay, so you've had enough time to work with us over the course of that time period. So what was that initial interaction, I guess? We'll start there with actually doing the consulting, because you came in for the first, it was like an all-day thing. You were there working with all the different positions, seeing how we currently do things, and then you basically formulated a plan. So what is, as a consultant, where does your brain go on that initial day? What are you actually looking for?
How are the systems in the clinic or the practice? Are there any systems? Does everybody kind of play from the same song sheet? I mean, are we sitting down and we can have a conversation and I can get the same information from you that I can get from her, that I can get from your front office team? And that was not consistent throughout the clinic. There was a similarity in the messaging, but it was definitely, they had their own spin on lots of things. And from our initial interaction, you were both very clear with me that we want to be best practice. And we want to make sure that from the front of the house to the back of the house, that it's all very, very consistent. And you were very clear on, I'm really good in the back of the house. I don't know what's going on in the front of the house. And I want to make sure that my associates are as good in the back of the house as I am. And so I was really paying attention to that consistency and how it was that you were delivering your product. How are they greeted? How are you doing the checkout? Are all of the associates doing the same checkout? Are we getting the same message on the phone? Is the systems that you say are in place, are they easy for everybody to find? Can we access them? Are they easy to use? Or are they just kind of non-existent and loose? And what I typically find in situations like this is that there is a belief that we have them, we have a system, and nobody's following it. So I go and I investigate. Well, tell me about, where's your system? Well, I have this blue book. And it's at the front, and everybody should be working out of the blue book.
Wait, is that really the color of the book?
Yeah.
It is the blue book.
Yeah, the blue book.
So
It's a
in your
binder.
practice, it's blue. In some practices, it's like, no, we got the red book because red stands out, but blue's your color. And in some offices, it's like, oh, it's on a Post-it note over there, and they read it like right there. It's like on the desk, and so then you have Post-it notes everywhere, or people have their own book and they have their own playbook, and they've got really, really great plays, but nobody else is playing. So I investigated the blue book, and I saw all of the handwritten notes on the pages that were in the blue book where people had modified the system that Ashley thought was in place. And then when she went to go check, and she's like, well, that's not what we talked about. That's not how it's supposed to be going. Or putting together an invoice, and we pulled up the system, and I was like, walk me through, because your system should be that, at that time my son was a lot younger, and I would say, my 17-year-old should be able to sit at your computer and perform this function without any issue. Might be a little rough, but you should be able to do it. So I can remember the day that I had you pull one of the systems out and we were trying to do something. You're reading it, you're like, well, this doesn't work. And nobody had tested the person that had put all of the data down. Like, we had a well-intentioned team member that attempted to try and put all the steps together with all of the steps, but it had never been fully vetted. And so making sure that the systems that you want to have in place are in place, that they're staying in place. If they're modified, that we go back and we modify them. And so from every aspect, I go in and I see where's your starting point. I set in on some of your consults, set in on fittings, took copious amounts of notes, recorded situations. Here in our state, we can record with just one person. How'd you guys listen to it? How'd you listen to people and how they're answering the phone? And we did personality profiles on everybody to see, are they in the right seat on the bus? And naturally, when you start bringing in tools like that, there's some team members, they don't want to play. Yeah. And they probably never were in the right seat, and they weren't going to be in the seat long for you, or they were going to upset the rest of the seats.
Right.
So we looked at every aspect of the business.
Yeah. And
from how you have your restroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Which is
top-notch restroom.
Top-notch.
If you're looking for a place to go use the restroom, you got to be a patient.
Well, because people buy from there, so it's actually how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And so from the, fingerprints on the walls to, do you, have dust bunnies in the corners and stuff like that. And that's an area that you guys had worked really, really hard at doing, but we didn't have consistent messaging with what the team was delivering.
So you won't just work with anybody. So what is the reason that you ultimately decided to work with our team?
With what you were passionate about and the commitment to change people's lives in a positive way. I want to work with people that are making a difference and want to be better at making a difference. So I could work with a lot of HMO, DMO style businesses in dentistry because they need a lot of help. But they aren't necessarily about really doing quality service for the patient. It's just get as many bodies in the clinic as we can and get as much money out of everybody that can come in, and we're going to maximize getting stuff from an insurance company. It's like, that's not what does it for me. It's like, grow the people inside the business so that we can be better at providing them a really high level service, no matter what that is. Whether it be audiology or dentistry or plastic surgery, geriatric medicine, any of that stuff. Keep the patients first and what it is that you want, whatever your passion is for them.
Ashley, what were you excited or nervous about when Sarah started working with us? Like, I don't know if you knew really what we were getting ourselves into, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember being nervous. I mean, because of my background and in medicine, and I've been in like facilities that put a lot of focus on quality in the patient experience and gave us training, and then places that didn't do that. When I was starting to work more in our company, I just realized that there were gaps, and there were too many of them for me to be able to put them in compartments and try to convince everybody that my ideas that I knew that we needed to do were going to be facilitated. So, and then, having the experience at Dr. Mabry's office and getting connected with Sarah. So I don't know that I was nervous necessarily. I was excited because I knew that we needed some refinement. And I just feel like we put a lot of time and attention in our audiologists to be masters at their craft and at just really changing the lives of our patients, that from a business as a collective, I knew that we had to really push ourselves to the limit to be better. Now, when I got nervous was when the first couple times Sarah came in, and then I realized how much work I had to do was very overwhelming. And now that I understand more about my personality, it makes sense.
I think that was a big part of it, is us figuring out how to actually communicate with everyone. Coming from a military background, being in a leadership role in a sniper team, it's just you lead by example, you tell someone to do it, and they just do it, right? Totally different in the civilian world, right? You can't just, say, do this and expect someone to do it and do it exactly the way that you want them to do it. And then from my perspective definitely is that I'm trapped in a room with my patients all day, so I can't even necessarily lead by example with the other audiologists on the staff, and definitely not front office, right? So for me, it was a opportunity to really see where I was not able to take what was in my head and the approach that I had from a treatment standpoint and give that to my audiologists for them to take it and run with it. And we just got done literally with an all-day team training today, talking about everything from a front office perspective when someone calls into the clinic and giving them a great experience on the phone too, and really understanding what their difficulties are so we can get them set up the right way. That was stuff that was just oblivious to me because it had been a couple of years at that point since I'd even answered a phone call, because with the whole YouTube channel, I can't get on the phone anymore because I'd be on the phone all day with people just wanting to pick my brain. So it was, I think for me, it was a really nice thing for me to kind of, you got to sit in on my consultations and take my approach to this is how we're effective from a treatment standpoint with patients. And then you were able to take and say, hey, we can replicate that with your staff, but we have to do it in this way. So what was your perspective? We'll start with the front office first. What was your perspective with the way that the front office was working compared to how we have it working right now?
They were a bit like a robot, and very much lots of checklists and or check boxes, I should say, not checklists. And it was coming off a bit more scripted than it was who you are and what is it that you really want to get out of this relationship. Where are you having your struggles? What are your pain points? And we're the answer. That wasn't living in the space. It was more or less, when was your last hearing test? Give me your information. I'm going to send you paperwork. All of that was very important, but it wasn't being teed up in a way that it was leaving the patient going I have to make sure I keep this appointment. And it definitely wasn't leaving space for them prepaying for the appointment in order to get on your schedule, which the majority of the time they actually do now. So that the confirming of the patients now isn't as necessary because they're already enrolled. So it was a bit over-structured with not enough people in it, not enough relationship in it, and a bit of this. Well, they tell me that, and she tells me that, and and this is what the book says.
Right.
And so there was different bits of information because different people had different opinions of how it was supposed to be done. Nobody had just come to the table and said, what's the best way for it to be done? You know, there was Ashley's opinion of how she thought that it was supposed to be done, a well-intended office manager with her opinion of how she felt it should be done, and then the one who's really doing it, going like, what do I do, right? And so just bringing everybody to the table, and it's really not that hard. It's just, it takes time.
Well, it takes time, and that brings up an interesting point. You've been with us for over 2 years now. If I'm recalling correctly, we would have all-day team meetings once a quarter, right? We would, of course, have like our end-of-year, team meeting that might be combined with an actually quarterly meeting just at the end of the year. But then you're coming in at least one full day a month to sit with different positions inside of the clinic. And so when you start adding up all of the hours that ultimately is, not to mention time spent on the phone doing, consulting over the phone and, recapping at the end of the day. I mean, we're talking hours and hours and hours. And if you look at most clinics out there, and I don't think this is just unique to audiology, and you have better insight to this, I would argue that that the majority of clinics that are kind of like dental, chiropractic, audiology, what have you, right? I would say that most of them spend little to no time on development of the team and getting a practice up to where they should really be striving to get to. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. It's only the upper echelon, the ones that are really putting the patients first, the people first, that train on providing the service. So they work on the business in order to work in the business at a really high quality level and be able to deliver on whatever their product is. If they are not spending time working on the business, they are going to be rushing in the business in order to survive. They will always be in catch-up mode because there is always somebody on your tail doing something, trying something different, growing themselves. So if you're good and you stay at good and you don't do anything about it, you are going to become average.
I think it's hard for someone in my position because I'm very type A. I have pride in what I do and what I've accomplished, and this goes back to time spent in the military, having pride with what you do with that. I think it's difficult for a lot of us to self-admit that we need help, and that and maybe there's some of us that don't. Maybe there's just some clinicians, owners that can go in and be like, oh, I know exactly how to run this practice and grow it in a way that everything is seamless and perfect. I think for me, it was kind of a wake-up call for me to realize, like, yeah, I can't do all this stuff on my own. I can be good at certain things, like really good at certain things, but then there's a lot of stuff that I'm not good at, and it sucks to admit. But I think that growing a team and making a strong team was something that I was not capable of doing. And I think you would agree that that was beyond your scope as well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like ever since I was like in sports and like in my studies, I've always felt like I was kind of this natural leader, and which is why in all my like professional jobs, I tended to take on more leadership roles. But like, it's different when I'm working for someone and I'm a leader in that capacity than like having your own business with employees. And like, that's a whole different level of leadership that I really hadn't had any like mentorship in. Because in medicine, at least in the role that I was in, like I don't get to work with those individuals and learn from example, you know? But so I just needed some guidance in navigating like the higher level aspects of business, but then also like managing people, you know, because it's different. I've always gotten along well with people, but it's different when you own a business. And so I just didn't have any experience with that, and I needed some guidance in that way.
Yeah.
Well, when you're sitting on both sides of the fence where you're having to be in relationship and inspire your people to do great things and want to grow, and then you're having to look at the bottom line and go like, okay, here's where the money's at, and I'm seeing that nobody's paying attention to X, Y, and Z, that these things actually cost us X amount of dollars and no one's paying attention. And I have to go inspire them to want to go pay attention to save this, you know, shipping. Let's just talk about simple shipping, you know, like sending out your cases. It's like, well, nobody's paying attention to that. We've got to pay for this thing. The loaners are going out. The loaners are coming back. We're sending this. We told them that we would overnight it. And just in these costs alone. So you have to sit on both sides of the table and be good at inspiring your people to want to do that for you. And then you have to be strategic and really slice and dice on the numbers. And how can you be strategic and have a conversation? So you have to grow yourself in your capacity to, like, you got to be a chameleon with the entire audience, and you have lots of profiles in your clinic that you have to speak to and that you have to inspire. And I think that you would agree that just understanding how to appreciate them is like, oh my gosh, I need a degree.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. There's so many aspects of different personality types, and you're talking right now about appreciation styles, like what works well on one employee doesn't work on another employee. So you literally have to change the way that you communicate and reward and praise to every single individual. And it really it boggles my mind how massive companies are able to maintain their employees. And I'm like, well, shoot, they probably don't. There's probably like massive turnover at really big companies because everyone is an individual inside of these companies.
I'm thinking like Employee Appreciation Day or like nurses. I don't know if they still have Nurses Week, but there used to be like a week, I think. And then like that would be like when you get appreciated.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I can go on and on about how that was back at the hospital.
Yeah. And then it's probably like, oh, we're going to have a barbecue day. Like you bring your family to a barbecue or something. Like that's the reward. Mm-hmm. And for some people who like, I don't like socializing with it, it's like a nightmare for them. And like that's your reward, right?
So the companies, the larger companies that know that that's how they're going to win, they actually spend the time to do the satisfaction surveys. They do the time to have their teams take their whatever their test is, whatever their personality profile is, whether they're doing strength finders or DISC or a lot of the HR companies will have their own that they've packaged so that across the industry, across their company, they can know if they have people in the right seat. So they're spending the time and the energy and the money to find out, how do I get the most out of these people and have them be happy, down to the point of asking them, do you have a friend inside of the company? Is there someone that you call friend inside of the company? You know, I went out of private consulting and went into the corporate world for quite some time and helped them develop a consulting arm. And it was something that we did. You know, like, you want to know, are your people happy? And if they're not, okay, what are we going to do to adjust and pivot? And so the ones who have it right, that want to retain their people, they spend the time and the energy and the money to figure out what's going to grow the people, whether that be, send them to a course, hire a consultant, have them get additional training around communication and role play and those types of things. So it's the people that are in the upper echelon that that spend the money, invest the money in their teams, because they know that that's how they win.
You know, and I feel like that was a necessary thing to do to result in optimal patient experiences in the clinic, as well as treatment outcomes. So now we've talked about front office. Let's pivot a little bit into the provider side of things. So you obviously went through that secret shopping experience with our audiologist, and then you ended up coming in and sitting in my consultation. And so what did you identify from your initial, and I think it was the first day you sat in on one of my consults, what was your initial impressions of how that interaction went?
There were distinct differences between the two. The framework was essentially the same. You'd built out a really nice model for taking the patient through their patient journey. The presentation between the providers was different because there was an animated relationship that you had with the patients that was just very organic, or seemed organic, although it's very strategic and very sharp. Having an innate ability to just read the audience really well, I got that from you. Was not translated with my experience. The associate got into relationship, but it was very, very high level, wasn't as deep, but the framework and the commitment to getting me what I needed, it was the same. And so, but at the end, the buying capability in certain profiles was going to be completely different based on how you were engaging with the patients and how your associate was engaging with the patients. They were not innately picking up how the audience was going to be making their decisions. They weren't picking up the pain points. They weren't picking up the pain points to use them later on in the journey. So we've spent a lot of time with your associates, training them. We need to have you pick up these pain points. We need you to use the information. We need you to communicate that you're the answer. So your associate was not doing that with me, going like, well, I'm gonna help you with that. I know you didn't realize that you really had the extent of hearing loss that you have, because I was a suspect purchaser going in, going like, hey, I think and I was using real world experience with, I find that I shift my phone a little bit. I find that my son tells me that the TV is a little high, but I think that's my son losing his hearing, not me. That's him. Like, there's something going on with him. He's the problem, right? And so I was using real world experience, but then when it came out, it was like, whoa, like, hey, I do have a little something going on here. But none of that was actually used really later on in the journey, where when I have witnessed you do it, you just pick up every little nugget along the way, and then you just give it right back to them like, I'm your answer.
It was funny, like I never used to be that way. We had actually talked today about how when I was a younger audiologist, first getting into the profession, there was a month that went by that I saw 30 to 32, I can't remember the exact number, patients for consultations, and none of them decided to pursue treatment. And I had been told up to that point, like, Cliff, you're going to be awesome. Like, you're just a personable individual. You're going to relate well to patients. And I'm like, well, why can't I get anyone to the point where they're willing to actually treat their hearing loss? Because I was taking the approach of being too hyper focused on the audiogram and the hearing test and the results of that. And clearly, if you have a hearing loss, you're going to treat it, right? And that's not how people make decisions. People make decisions based off of what is the problem that we're actually fixing. We're not actually fixing the hearing loss. We're fixing that you can't hear your child talk to you. We're fixing the problem that you can't understand what's on the TV. Like, we're fixing those problems. We're fixing the problem of my wife won't get off my back because she says I have a hearing difficulty. Well, we're not treating the hearing loss, we're treating the problem of your wife's on your back all the time about it, right? And so until I realized that, until I started communicating with people in a way that they needed to be communicated with, I was not an effective provider. And so I know it might come across to maybe even channel viewers that it's manipulative. And it's really not. It was me telling them something in a way that what mattered to me and didn't matter to them. And once I made that switch, it completely changed everything. And when you combine that, obviously my biggest thing is best practice audiologic care. When you combine I'm actually going to care about what your problems are instead of me projecting on you, and then I'm going to approach it from a very strategic standpoint of, we have these certain best practices, they're proven by research to result in optimal treatment outcomes. I'm going to do those to a T, and you're going to have an excellent experience and an excellent treatment outcome. And how do you think that the rest of us are now? Because we now have 3 other providers inside the clinic. We have Dr. Beck, Dr. Cook, and Dr. Balderas. What is the difference between how they operate now compared to when you first started coming in to work with us?
There was only the framework that existed that they would work out of. So the deck that you had created that you had spent so much time on. So they were using the same deck, but they were attempting to present off of the deck in their way. And you've spent a lot of time, you had one of your associates actually literally sat with you and word for word, verbatim, actually transcribed you, and over several visits took and merged all of the information to come up with, okay, this is really the language that we want to be using. Now, how do we put the pitch, the pace, the tone into this orchestrated dance that we're having with the patients so that everybody can pull this off and communicate well with the audience? So you have spent a ton of time getting the best practice of how to present on paper. You have reviewed, copious amounts of reviews that you've recorded, and you've gone in the trenches with all of them so that you've taken bits and pieces of all of them and have said, okay, so you struggle with when they bring up money. All right, let's dismantle money. Okay, so you struggle when you don't have the companion in the room. All right, how do we deconstruct that and how do we put that together? So you have worked very diligently with all of the associates, and we've sat down and we've helped them, and we put them all together in the same room so they're all hearing the same thing, and they're now all coming together to have the same results. So they may not all be a bullseye, they aren't mini Dr. Olsons, but they are on the target of being a Dr. Olson and having very similar outcomes, and definitely similar treatment outcomes, which is even more important because I know that it's about them saying yes. And so they're getting good acceptance rates and moving in the direction of better acceptance rates and better acceptance rates. And so there's a consistency that definitely was not there that's there now.
Well, one thing that I realize is that my career has taken me in a certain direction to where I can't see every single person on the planet, There's a lot of people who want to see me that just ultimately can't see me because I don't have time to see them. So I felt that the best way for me to actually help as many people as possible is to somewhat replicate what I do inside of the clinic to get someone to the point where they realize, okay, treatment's what I need to do, and then ultimately getting the best treatment humanly possible. Ashley, what is the change that you've seen inside the clinic from a provider standpoint since we started working with Sarah?
A lot of change. I think the way that our providers, their confidence level is much higher. The time that we've taken to learn about personalities, not just our own as a team, but like our patients, helps them to understand and communicate with their patients better. I think that, we spend a lot of time talking about like unique cases and difficult cases, and I think that helps them to, have someone to model difficult cases for when they have those patients in the future. I think they're like very, a lot more higher level audiologists than when they came in. And they probably didn't know what they signed up for when they signed the the dotted line there, but
I think initially, again, it was a self-reflective moment for me to realize like I don't have all the answers, right? And that is a hit to your pride. It really is. When you've been told your whole life, you've been in leadership positions before, and to take a step back and be like, you know what? Maybe I don't have all the answers. I had the ability to choose. You had the ability to choose that decision to say, hey, I need help. When you're an employee who works with us, you don't have a choice. You are told in a way, in a nice way, that you are going to get professional development, whether you realize you need it or whether you want it or not, because we're striving for excellence here. We're not just trying to be another clinic that someone calls up and says, hey, I just want a free hearing test. Like, that's just not what we do. Like, we spend the time, we spend the money, the resources, all of that to try to be better. And I don't think that we'll ever stop trying is the thing. And I mean, this is kind of like the never-ending, treadmill that we're always gonna be looking for what's another thing that we can do to improve it 0.1% tomorrow.
It's kind of like when I did CrossFit, like I would get faster and stronger, quicker, whatever. And like, let's say my squat, it just kept getting harder. Well, because when you get faster and stronger, you keep lifting more weight, or you run faster, so your runs get harder. Like, that's just kind of how it works. So like, even when we have these trainings and we work on self-development and we improve as a team, like each time we meet and work on something, it probably feels hard because we've like climbed the ladder of that development. And I don't know, I really enjoy it. I think it's helped me out as a person inside the clinic and outside.
I would agree with that.
So
yeah, you're a much better person since we started working with Sarah outside of the clinic. Home life is way better now. Yeah. So Sarah, you've obviously worked with a lot of different practice owners, clinic owners. At what point and they might reach a point where they're like, okay, we've taken everything that we can, at least at this point. Like, what happens from a transition period out of when they're done working with their consultant?
They generally will, in some cases, they will come back in a different capacity, or we bring in other resources that may not be my skill set, and we put them onto the next journey. So if they have really maxed out, it's like, great, let's go find you the next thing, because the only constant is change. And so if you do not continue growing yourself and your people, I wish that you could say that they're always going to be the same. You're always adding new people. I mean, people don't stay for their lifetime, so you are always going to be growing the people. So there's always going to be something that you're going to have to be working on. You just have to choose how you're going to work on it. And there are teams that I've worked with, doctors, practices that I've worked with, that you go in and they're like, yeah, consulting, I don't know. I've had consultants and, I didn't get any results. And I'm like, well, so what did they have you implement? And they're like, well, they gave me a book, and then, we put the book away, and, it was just kind of like nobody wanted to do it. They didn't like when that consultant showed up. And I'm like, what did you think of the consultant? Well, they would come in, they would spend some time, they would do a little bit, and then it'd be like, and then it was just all the same. And I'm like, so what did you implement from the consultant? What did they task you with? How did you grow? And they could never come up with anything. I'm like, was the consultant really the problem?
Well, you could argue, and I'll pose this argument, you could pose that just like there are audiology clinics on every corner here in the greater Phoenix area, that some of those clinics might not be up to the task, might not really have the goal or focus of trying to really do the right thing. And there might also be consultants out there who maybe shouldn't be consultants, right?
Yeah, that's why I always ask the question, like, what was the plan and what did you do with it? Was it that you didn't implement and integrate, or was it that their material was a book? Anybody can give anybody a book, but if you can't inspire them to actually integrate what's in the book or help them create their own book, that's how I go about it. Because if it's my book, the minute that I leave, it's going to be like, that's Sarah's book.
Right.
And it's like, I know, it's not my playbook. You're creating your playbook so that you're inspired to get your people to play. And then we play from that space. And then find out, were they the problem from the leaders down? You are very unique in how you guys dig in and you get busy with the work and you start implementing and integrating and you modify and you pivot, you try it and you're like, I didn't like that one. Let's modify that a little bit. Okay, great. Because we're about getting the results. It's not like my playbook. I'm here to help you develop your playbook that you can play by at best practice level. And that's where the beauty is. It's in developing the relationship that you inspire the people to make the change stick. And that you guys want to carry it on, not that it's me that carries it on. And when we're done, I just inspire you to the next thing. It's like, what's your next thing? And I love when people go and do their next thing. I mean, the dentist that you see, he's done several next things out of a result of where he grew his team to. His office manager started as like a simple front office assistant, and she's running a mega dental practice that she loves doing. And it's like that's what has me win, is that I see people like that continue to win.
That was actually leading into my next question for you, which is, what inspires you about what you do?
I love seeing people grow themselves to a point that they're happy doing what they're doing and that they see the success that they're having along the way and that they're making a difference, whatever that is. I mean, I've had team members that have left. One in particular comes to mind. They left the facility that was being coached, probably the hardest personality that I've ever coached. Like push and pull, push and pull, push and pull, tears, like screaming matches, like I would be facilitating screaming matches with team members. And I've had these team members reach back out and go, you know what, like you made a difference. And out of, like, I could get emotional. Out of a team member that would be like, I need to borrow money. I need to borrow money from my boss. Can I get an advancement from my check? To they qualified for a car, bought a house, and that they now are actually operating inside of their own little business. And that they reach out and they go, you know what? I'm just sitting out here in my patio and I'm reading my Sarah-ism book. I'm like, so you have a Sarah-ism book? Like that's what drives me, is that people actually go and they make a difference. And generally it's that they stay inside of where they're at and they continue to grow that business. If it wasn't the right seat where they were at, if I could help them find the right seat, that's even better. And so whatever it is that the business that hires me, whatever their passion is and that they want to deliver, I want them delivering it at the highest, best level that they can, and continue to grow themselves so that they sustain themselves in their industry, whatever that is. And I would like to say that every business that I consulted prior to COVID made it through COVID. Nice. Is exceeding after COVID. And, it's not everybody can say that they made it through all of that. But if they were doing really the right thing before all of that, whatever, they were doing the right thing through it. And then they grew on the other side of it. And they're even better because of it, because they lasted and grew. And so that's what I'm all about.
Well, that's cool. So I know that you're incredibly focused on helping us achieve our goals and having optimal treatment outcomes with our patients. So weird job interview question for you, which is, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Seeing more people accomplish their passion in life and helping them expand and grow. So taking my model to a much different model, and being a one-to-many instead of just a one-to-one. I have, after leaving the corporate world, I really niched myself into being very selective with who I worked with, and I've worked with a very nice book of business, and I want to make a bigger difference. And I see myself being able to help a one-to-many, but in a different model. I didn't go back into the same business model that I had when I got back out of the corporate world, because everybody wanted me. And I had coaches that worked for me, that would go into businesses, and they would get me periodically. But they weren't getting enough of the me model. They were getting my consultant's view of what my me model was. And so I'm just shifting, kind of pivoting, and getting to a larger group of people and growing the people, not necessarily the business, but the people in the business.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for taking some time. I think we've probably chat for about an hour at this point. It flew by, of course, but who knows? Maybe we'll have you back on the show again in the future whenever your career takes you in this newer direction that you're talking about. So, Ashley, thank you as well for joining us on the show today to provide some context for us working with Sarah. Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome on the show anytime too, by the way,
I might have to pop on a podcast with Dr. Beck and Dr. Cook and Dr. Balderas.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, guys, there you go. If you want to check out the full interview, I will have that link down in the description. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button with the thumbs up.